March 1st, 2022, and we are live broadcasting right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We're also broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Well, I saw a story this morning dealing with this happened on Monday, February 28th. We've talked about the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. We've talked about that here before on this show. And the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill passed the House of Representatives on Monday, February 28th, by a vote of, the vote was 422 to 3. 422 to 3. It got overwhelming support, or overwhelming bipartisan support from both Republicans and Democrats. So we're going to talk a little bit about this bill and the significance of it. Now, it's headed to the Senate. We know that it was about June of 2020, the bill was blocked in the Senate by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. And Senator Rand Paul helped to craft this new bill, this incarnation of the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. And he now supports the bill. We're going to talk about this as well, okay? And so it's expected to pass the Senate now in this incarnation. Also, we'll continue our coverage of what's going on in Ukraine and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We know this is day number 6 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So we'll give you an update on that. And there was an article from Axios.com that deals with leaders decry reported mistreatment of Africans fleeing Ukraine. Leaders decry reported mistreatment of Africans leaving Ukraine. We'll talk about this as well. There have been about 660,000 people fleeing from Ukraine, and over 50% of them are going to Poland. Over 50% of them are going to Poland. On yesterday's show, we talked about how President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria was denouncing the mistreatment of Africans in Ukraine, especially the approximately 4,000 Nigerians in Ukraine. And he was instructing them to, those that are leaving, to go to Romania or Hungary, which also borders Poland. So we'll talk about this as well. And then there was a article, CNN had a story about this as well, about the foreign students fleeing Ukraine, say they face segregation, racism at the border. Okay, so CNN has a story on this. So I know the past few days I've been talking about how a lot of mainstream media, a lot of cable news has not been covering this story. Don Lemon did talk about this on his show on CNN. And CNN has an article regarding this also. So we'll talk a little bit, we'll share a little information about that. And then we'll talk some about President Joe Biden's State of the Union address. He hit on a number of different topics today. Washington Post has some really good analysis of it. So we'll talk about this some more on tomorrow's show as well. Washington Post, New York Times. I watched the entire speech, number one. Number two, I always go through and look at analysis from different news sources. Washington Post, New York Times, NBC News, usually like thinkprogress.org, things like that. So I'll get a number of different sources. Okay, so we'll talk about this on today's show and also tomorrow's show. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. All right, now the calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. We're going to jump into this first story here, dealing with the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. So there was a story that I saw from New York Times is a good story on this. House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime, and it was Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois who is really behind this bill. Okay, and we're going to go when we come back from the break, Shakita. We're going to clip number 1. Okay, from ABC News channel, ABC Channel 7 in Chicago. We'll go to clip number 1 when we come back from the break. But very quickly here, if we look at this piece here from the New York Times, in the Hill, I posted an article from the Hill.com. Hill.com has an article on this from February 28th, and then New York Times, Washington Post has stories on this also. I was looking at stories from different sources on this bill. House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime. House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime. Lawmakers in both parties hailed the action as historic, but a separate bill to outlaw discrimination based on a person's natural hair failed amid Republican opposition. All right. Now, you had 3 idiotic Republicans that need to be voted out of office who voted against the bill. Okay. Only 3 in the House of Representatives. Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia, who now this is the dumbass who said, if referring to the January 6th insurrection, if you didn't know better, it'd just look like it was a bunch of tourists who were going on a tour of the U.S. Capitol building. That's Andrew Clyde, who needs to be voted out of office. You had Thomas Massey, who posted a lovely picture for Christmas of he and his family with assault rifles. Okay, so you had that idiot, Representative Thomas Massey, and then you had this other dumbass named Representative Chip Roy of Texas. He voted against the bill as well. Now we're going to talk about Chip Roy, because Chip Roy has some very interesting comments of why. Now these are all 3 white men, by the way. Okay, this is not an attack on white men. I'm just stating facts. But Chip Roy had a very interesting take on lynchings. Now he's from Texas. Texas had one of the highest numbers of lynchings in this country. Okay, we'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by. All right. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. Turn on live notifications so you know when we go live. Stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. You support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay, hold on. I have to get ready for this next segment. Everybody just stand by. We may I may have to refresh the screen. We may lose connection for a minute. Just give me one commercial break. Back from break in 3 minutes. How's everybody doing? Turn on live notifications on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Michael Imhotep on YouTube and the African History Network on Facebook. Gives a thumbs up, a heart, or a heart on this broadcast. Back from break in 2 minutes. All right, John, Ray, Lawrence, how's everybody doing? Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute. Be sure to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All right, stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, March 1st, 2021. 2022, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. And we are live. Okay, calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, I want to go to this article here. This is from New York Times. This deals with the House of Representatives on Monday, February 28th, 2022, passing the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. The bill passed 422-3 in the House. It got overwhelming bipartisan support. There were 3 Republicans who voted against the bill. Only 3 Republicans voted against the bill. Now, some people may make mention and talk about a Asian hate crime bill or Asian anti-hate crime bill, things like this. First of all, the name of the bill ain't the Asian hate crime bill. It's the COVID-19. It's the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. Number 1. Go to Congress.gov. Go to Congress.gov and actually read a summary of the bill, because the bill, number 1, is not specific to race. 2, it only deals with COVID-19 related hate crimes. This is why it's important to read. It only deals with COVID-19 related hate crimes, and it applies to people regardless of race or ethnicity, which means it applies to African Americans also. This is why it's important to read. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't read. That's one of the biggest problems. So you had I'm going to come to Representative Chip Roy here in just a second. There was a piece from blackamericaweb.com that talked about Representative Chip Roy of Texas, who voted against the bill. And the name of this article, I guess rightfully so, from Black America Web, is called "Hang 'em High Republican Who Voted Against Emmett Till Bill Called Lynching a Metaphor for Justice." Now, see, this is an example of how elections have consequences and why a lot of these people need to be voted out of office, who consistently vote against bills that we advocate for. Okay, or bills that are beneficial to us, because a lot of bills that are beneficial to us we don't even know exist. A lot of people, because I listen to what people say. A lot of these most people are not even talking about how HBCUs got $5.8 billion in the first year of the Biden-Harris administration, which is a record number of funding for HBCUs. They've never gotten that type of money, but most people don't even mention that. Okay, we've talked about it here on this show. Hang 'em high Republican who voted against Emmett Till bill called lynching, quote unquote, a metaphor for justice. Okay, this is dumbass Republican Chip Roy of Texas. He has framed lynchings in the context of law enforcement and even claimed they offer quote unquote protection to Americans. This is an example of how elections have consequences. This is why these people who consistently vote against our own interests, we need to have enough sense to vote them out of office. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a minute. Good old Chip off the old block. Let's go back to this piece here from the New York Times. We're going to clip one in just a second, Shakita. Okay, so the House of Representatives on Monday overwhelmingly approved legislation that would make lynching a federal hate crime, moving to formally outlaw a brutal act that has become a symbol of the failure by Congress and the country, become a symbol of the failure by Congress and the country to reckon with the history of racial violence in America. Passage of the anti-lynching bill, named in honor of Emmett Till, 14-year-old African-American boy who was brutally murdered, J.W. Millam and Roy Bryant, August 28th, 1955 in Money, Mississippi, came after more than a century of failed attempts. Okay, now somebody says not going to mean a thing if it doesn't pass the Senate. Okay, well, the person that blocked it in the Senate helped write this bill and he supports it now. That's Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Okay, so I talked about that in the beginning of the show. Now, lawmakers estimated they had tried more than 200 times to pass a measure to explicitly criminalize a type of attack that has long terrorized Black Americans. Now, if you really want to do something, instead of complaining, saying it doesn't mean anything if the Senate don't pass it, when the person who blocked it in the Senate in June 2020 actually helped write this bill and says he now supports it, we're going to come to that. What you can do is call your two members of the U.S. Senate and ask them to pass this bill. Because, see, that's what a lot of people do. They call their senators, they call the members of the House of Representatives, they put pressure on them, they send emails, they call them. Now, the number to the congressional switchboard, and I'm going to give you that number because I have it here on my phone because I've called before. Number to the congressional switchboard, we'll post it up here, is 202. Let me post the number up here. Congressional switchboard. Okay. It's like when you download the document Indivisible, which was used by a lot of people, especially white people across the country, to help save the Affordable Health Care Act and help put pressure on Republicans during the Trump administration. The document Indivisible that we talked about here on the show before, it teaches you how to organize and put pressure on members of the House, your member of the House of Representatives and your two members of the U.S. Senate. And they have form letters in there to teach you how to engage with your members of the House of Representatives. You're one, because everybody has one member of the House of Representatives, the congressional district you live in. And you have two U.S. senators. Okay, well, unless you live in Washington, D.C. Congressional switchboard, the number is 202-224-3121. So I have it stored on my phone. Congressional switchboard, 202-224-3121. Okay, so we have to change the narrative. We can't sit back and talk about they don't do this, they don't do this, they need to do this, they need to do that. It don't mean a thing if it don't have that swing. Well, if they don't pass, damn all that they stuff. We need to take control of our own destiny and put pressure on them and force our agenda. See, you got a lot of people talking about a Black agenda. They don't know how to carry one out. A lot of them don't know how to write one because you have to understand history and law first to put together a Black agenda. But how to execute one, how to carry one out, you force your agenda. You leverage your economics to enforce your political agenda. You leverage your economics to enforce and to force your politics. Call your member of the U.S. Senate, your two members of the U.S. Senate, and tell them to vote for the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. 202-224-3121. Okay, we have to take more control of our destiny, as opposed to leaving it up to other people. Oh, if they don't do this, they have to do this. Why aren't they doing damn all that stuff? No, we force our, we bring into existence the reality that we want. Okay, you can't talk about, you can't spend 7 days during Kwanzaa talking about Kujichagulia self-determination, and then the rest of the year go back to being a Negro and complaining about they don't do this, they don't do that. The hell with all that. Okay, so let's continue. Now, let's go back to this article here from New York Times. So the bill was approved 422-3 and was expected to pass the Senate, where it enjoys broad support, and was expected, and it was expected to pass the Senate, where it enjoys broad support, because the person that blocked the bill helped write this one, and he supports it now. Senator Paul of Kentucky. Now he needs to be voted out of office. He's up for re-election in 2022. He needs to be voted out of office, but he did a good thing here. Quote, the House today has sent a resounding message that our nation is finally reckoning with one of the darkest and most horrific periods of our history, and that we are morally and legally committed to changing course, said Representative Bobby L. Rush, former member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, Democrat of Illinois, who had vowed to see the legislation become law before retiring at the end of his term. He's retiring at the end of this term. He had vowed to see this legislation become law. In a statement, Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois, of Chicago, who was a civil rights leader and founded the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, recalled when he was an 8-year-old boy. He said he first saw a photograph of Emmett Till's battered body, an image that he said shaped my consciousness as a Black man in America. He said the image of Emmett Till's battered body, seeing Emmett Till there laying in a coffin. Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till, said she wanted to have an open casket funeral so the world can see what they did to her baby. He said that seeing a photograph of Emmett Till's battered body shaped my consciousness as a Black man in America, changed the course of my life, and changed our nation, end quote. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. If you like this type of information, you support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay, I have to refresh the screen. Just stand by. We may cut out for a minute because I have to close some of these tabs out. We're going to talk some more about the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill when we come back. We'll give an update on what's going on in Ukraine. We'll talk about African students still trying to get out. Some have made it out, as we talked about on Monday's show, Monday, February 28th. Okay, stand by. Hold on. Let me close some of this stuff out here. Okay, back from break in 4 minutes. I have a bunch of tabs open here in Google Chrome. Let's do this here. Back from break in 3 minutes. Who still needs to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays? Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. and from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. These are 10-week online classes I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, back from break in 2 minutes.
Only African American Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. We have to get used to saying March. And we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about the U.S. House of Representatives on Monday, February 28th, last day of Black History Month, passed by overwhelming bipartisan support, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, okay? New York Times is a good article on this. And there have been more than 200 attempts to pass a federal anti-lynching bill. There have been more than 200 attempts to pass a federal anti-lynching bill. We can go back to 1917 and the Silent March of 1917, where you had 10,000 African Americans marching in down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Okay, the Silent March, and this was demanding an anti-lynching bill, a federal anti-lynching bill. There's one from AtlantaBlackStar.com on this. There's also one from blackpast.org. The march was organized by James Weldon Johnson, who wrote the lyrics to Lift Every Voice and Sing in 1899, 1900. Okay. And if we look here quickly here at this from blackpast.org to connect the dots of this history. Now, this silent march, there was about 10,000 African Americans marching down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. This took place after the East St. Louis race riot of 1979, East St. Louis, Illinois race riot of 1917. Okay. And the NAACP helped organize this march. It was James Weldon Johnson. The silent protest parade, also known as the Silent March, took place on Fifth Avenue in New York City, Fifth Avenue in New York, Saturday, July 28th, 1917. The protest was a response to violence against African Americans, including race riots, lynching, and outrages in Texas, Tennessee, Illinois, and other states. One incident in particular, the East St. Louis race riot, which we talked about here on this show before. I've done a presentation on this. Also called the East St. Louis Massacre, was a major catalyst of the silent parade. This horrific event drove close to 6,000 African Americans from their own burning homes and left several hundred dead. Okay, this was the East St. Louis, Illinois race riot of 1917, and this preceded the silent march in 1917 demanding federal anti-lynching bill, a federal anti-lynching bill. Woodrow Wilson, white supremacist Woodrow Wilson, was president at the time. This was 2 years after the movie The Birth of a Nation debuted February 8th, 1915, which depicted the Ku Klux Klan as being the heroes, okay, to save America and to save white people. And that movie helped to rejuvenate the Ku Klux Klan. So we're going to see an increase in lynchings also after this movie. And this movie calls Race Riots in the Streets as well. Okay, so James Weldon Johnson, the second vice president of the NAACP, brought civil rights leaders together at St. Philip's Church in New York to plan protest strategies. None of the group wanted a mass protest, yet all agreed that a silent protest through the streets of the city could spark racial reform and an end to violence. James Weldon Johnson remembered the idea of a silent protest from a NAACP conference in 1916 when Oswald Garrison Villard suggested it. All the organizations agreed that this parade needed to be composed of the Black citizens rather than a racially mixed gathering. Okay, all of the organizations agreed that this had to be all African Americans protesting. They didn't want a racially mixed group protesting. They argued that as the principal victims of the violence, African Americans had a special responsibility to participate in this, the first major public protest of racial violence in U.S. history. The parade went south down Fifth Avenue. It moved to 57th Street and then Madison Square. It brought out nearly 10,000 Black women, men, and children who all marched in silence. James Weldon Johnson urged that the only sound to be heard would be the sound of muffled drums. Children dressed in white led the protest and were followed by women, also dressed in white. Men brought up the rear dressed in dark suits. They carried signs with them as well. Now, AtlantaBlackStar.com has a good article. Now, a lot of people found out about this silent march in 2017. A lot of people found out about this silent march in 2017, and that was the 100th year anniversary. Okay, and that was largely because of what Google did. July 28th, Google marked the 100th anniversary with a icon on the homepage of the Google search engine honoring the silent march. Okay, and this is how a lot of people found out about it, because there were articles written about this. Friday, July 28th, 2017 marked the 100th year anniversary of the silent parade, a demonstration of nearly 10,000 Black Americans quietly parading down New York's Fifth Avenue to protest race-based violence and white supremacy. Okay, so they talk about the NAACP. They were holding signs. Time magazine has an article on this. Dressed in white from head to toe, thousands of men, women, and children took to the streets, toting signs with slogans like "Thou shalt not kill, and your hands are full of blood." Thou shalt not kill, and your hands are full of blood. Their goal was to get white supremacist President Woodrow Wilson to fulfill his promise of taking legislative action to protect the civil rights of African Americans, which he discussed during his presidential campaign. There was no singing, no chanting, just silence. No singing, no chanting, just silence. Tech giant Google said in a statement, quote, "Today's doodle, DOODLE, today's doodle commemorates the 100th anniversary of the silent march and honors those whose silence resonates a century later." Okay, so it's been at least 100 years that this is the actual doodle that Google had on the homepage at google.com. All right. So this is how a lot of people learned about this history that happened 100 years previously. So the fight to get a federal anti-lynching bill is over 100 years old. Okay, just so people understand this. Now, more than 200 times, the lawmakers have tried more than 200 times to pass a measure to explicitly criminalize a type of attack that has long terrorized Black Americans, that has explicitly criminalized a type of attack that has long terrorized Black Americans. The bill was approved 42-3 and was is expected to pass the Senate. Now, let's go to this clip here from ABC Channel 7, Shakita, clip number 1.
Taking on the issue of making lynching a federal hate crime, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act will receive a vote Monday evening on the House floor and is expected to pass. It was reintroduced by Congressman Bobby Rush.
Hopefully people will think twice before they go out and commit a crime against a different person because of their race or gender or lifestyle.
Ollie Gordon is Till's cousin. They lived in the same Woodlawn home until 1955, when Till was brutally tortured and killed while visiting relatives in Mississippi. His death at age 14 sparked the civil rights movement, but repeated attempts over the years to make lynching a federal crime failed.
I think we're moving in the right direction, despite how long it's taken.
Perry Ermer is the president and CEO of the DuSable Museum, which currently has an installation called Unresolved. It highlights the cases of more than 150 people who were killed during the civil rights movement. Ermer says this latest step toward making lynching a federal hate crime is long overdue.
Congress is once again taking on the issue of
younger generations not repeat the mistakes of the past, not repeat the criminal acts of the past.
The Anti-Lynching Act came close to becoming law 2 years ago. It passed the House, but was blocked in the Senate. This time, legislation applies to a wider range of circumstances, and Gordon says she's cautiously optimistic.
I'm hopeful, and I'm praying that it will pass in the Senate.
Once the bill passes the House, it's expected to receive a unified show of support from senators, including Rand Paul from Kentucky, who opposed the original measure 2 years ago for being too broad. Karen Jordan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay.
Congress is one.
Pause right there, Shakita. Okay, we're coming up on the break. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. We'll give an update on what's going on in Ukraine, and we'll try to squeeze in and talk a little bit about Joe Biden's State of the Union address as well. We're going to talk about that more on tomorrow's show. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Okay, back from break in 4 minutes. Okay, stand by, everybody. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 3 minutes. Okay, you can still register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And by. Back from breaking 1 minute. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. All right, you can still register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturday, it is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We go through history chronologically. We also deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. Okay, next class is Saturday, March 5th, 2022. This is a 10-week online course that I teach. We do it Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The class is regularly $130, on sale $80. And as soon as you register, you can watch last week's classes, bonus content also. On Sundays, I teach from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay, we have a bundle pack. You can register for both classes for only $120. That's a $260 value. And if you've taken any of my online classes with me before, email me at TheAHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com and you'll get 50% off the classes. All right, let's continue here. So we're going to clip 2 in just a second, Shakita, dealing with Ukraine. All right, now if we go back to, okay, so first of all, check out the article from ABC Channel 7 in Chicago. This was Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Bill, Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. House passes bill to make lynching a federal hate crime. This is from Monday, February 28, 2022, ABC Channel 7, Chicago. Okay, so check out that article. Now, if we go back to the piece from New York Times, House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime. House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime. In the article goes on to say, let's see, page 2, it talks about the 3 idiots that voted against the bill. 3 Republicans, Representatives Andrew Clyde of Georgia. All 3 of these guys are Trump supporters, by the way. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Chip Roy of Texas opposed the anti-lynching bill. The legislation now heads to the Senate, where the chamber formally apologized in 2005 for its failure to act on the issue, including during the Jim Crow era when Southern senators successfully blocked efforts to take it up. Now, in 2018, 3 black senators, Cory Booker, Democrat of New Jersey, Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, and Senator Kamala Harris of California attempted to resurrect the bid to make lynching a federal hate crime. The legislation passed the Senate in December 2018, just weeks before Congress adjourned. It surfaced again in the summer of 2020 amid a wave of racial justice protests following the killings of African American men and women by white people. It ignited a fight on the Senate floor after Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, objected to its quick passage, calling it overly broad. On Monday, Senator Rand Paul said in a statement he would support the measure. He would support the measure which Senator Cory Booker and Senator Tim Scott reintroduced on Monday evening. He said, quote, "I'm pleased to have worked with Senators Booker and Scott to strengthen the final product and ensure the language of this bill defines lynching as the absolutely heinous crime that it is," Senator Rand Paul said. Now, the House vote came on the final day of Black History Month, when House leaders also tried and failed to pass another bill that would bar racial discrimination, based on natural hair and hairstyles, including cornrows, twists, and braids. The measure drew bipartisan support, but fell short of the 2/3 that would have been needed to push it through under a special process reserved for consensus bills. Okay, so try again, try to get that passed again. The measure, which passed by voice vote in 2020, would assert that racial and national origin discrimination can and do occur because of longstanding racial and national origin biases and stereotypes associated with hair texture and style. Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, a Democrat from New Jersey, member of the Congressional Black Caucus, and the champion of the legislation, urged her colleagues to support it, declaring that, quote, "Our natural hair is as innate a quality of Black people as the presence of melanin in our skin. Quote, nobody should have to sacrifice their time, their money, and the health of their hair for the sake of complying with racist standards of professionalism." Okay, this is Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman. She said, quote, "Nobody should have to sacrifice their time, their money, and their health of their hair for the sake of complying with racist standards of professionalism." But a majority of Republicans opposed the measure. Elections have consequences. A majority of Republicans opposed the measure, which is why we need to vote a lot of these people out of office. Representative Dumbass Jim Jordan of Ohio, big Trump supporter, big conspiracy theorist, the top Republican on the House Judiciary Committee. If Republicans take back control of the House of Representatives, dumbass Jim Jordan out of Ohio, who looks like he shops at the boys section of Kmart because he doesn't wear a suit coat, he'll be chair of the House Judiciary Committee. He called it, quote, unnecessary and duplicative, given existing laws against discrimination. Representative Lauren Boebert, conspiracy theorist, big Trump supporter, Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado, reading aloud a proxy vote, derisively referred to the legislation as the bad hair bill. House Democrats vowed to bring up the legislation again through the regular process, which would allow it to pass with a simple majority. It would face a far tougher path in the Senate, where it has no Republican sponsors and where 60 votes are needed to pass most legislation, which is why more of these Republicans need to be voted out of office, because they keep voting against our own interests. Several states have passed similar bills, including in New Jersey, after a Black high school wrestler was forced to cut his dreadlocks to compete. That story went national. We talked about it here on this show. On Monday, the Minnesota House of Representatives passed its own version with a bipartisan vote. Okay, those watching, this is Bonnie Watson Coleman right here, Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're going to keep going for a few more minutes. We're going to talk about this idiot right here, Chuck Roy, who out of Texas, who voted against the bill and he said he voted against the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. He called lynching a metaphor for justice. I wonder what he's talking about. Out of Texas, he called lynching a metaphor for justice. Okay, thanks for listening to the African History Network show. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Okay, let's continue here. How's everybody doing? If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, and also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the information there. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. And we have the link here. And then also we have the PayPal button there as well. All right. And then we have the information on our website also to register for the online classes, online history classes. I teach on the weekends also. Okay, let's continue here. Let's go back to this. So check out that piece from New York Times, the New York Times. House passes bill making House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime. This is the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Hate Crime Act. Now, blackamericaweb.com has this piece on the same topic. Hang 'em high Republican who voted against Emmett Till bill called lynching a metaphor for justice. Hang 'em high Republican who voted against Emmett Till bill called lynching a metaphor for justice. Texas Representative Chip Roy has framed lynchings in the context of law enforcement and even claimed they offered protection to Americans. This is a picture of Chip off the old block, good old Chip. Hold on, what the hell is this? Come on. Had too many pop-ups from Black America Web. This is good old Chip. Good upstanding citizen. Now, the historic passage of the anti-lynching bill in the House of Representatives on Monday wasn't even close with a vote of 422-3. But the lopsided vote also brought attention to three Republican congressmen who opposed the bill named for Emmett Till that would make lynching a federal hate crime. One of them, Texas Representative Chip Roy, has made no secret about his feelings toward lynching, which is an infamous terroristic vigilante tactic employed against African Americans by racist whites in the 19th and 20th centuries that often ended in public executions by way of hangings. Now, Representative Chip Roy of Texas, Republican, has framed the topic of lynchings in the context of law enforcement. Framed the topic of lynchings in the context of law enforcement, and even claimed that it offered protection to Americans, which is tantamount to racist dog whistling. Now, in case you haven't figured it out, he voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. In case you're sitting there trying to figure out, did he vote for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? No Republicans in the House of Representatives voted for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. That bill passed the House of Representatives March 3rd, 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. All the Republicans voted against the bill. The only people that voted for the bill were Democrats. Just about a year ago, Representative Chip Roy expressed a similar sentiment during a congressional hearing about Asian Americans and hate crimes. Representative Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, said, "We believe in justice," he said in reference to people from Texas. He went on to glorify lynching imagery. He said, quote, there's old sayings in Texas about find all the rope in Texas and get a tall oak tree. Representative Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, said, good upstanding citizen. There's old sayings in Texas. Find all the rope in Texas and get a tall oak tree. He said, we take justice very seriously, and we ought to do that. Round up the bad guys. That's what we believe. Very interesting. Later, Representative Chip Roy doubled down on that hatefully violent rhetoric. A brief interview with the Austin American Statesman in 2021. At the time, he said he views lynching through the lens of policing. That's very interesting. He said, quote, I'm pro law enforcement. I'm pro taking out the bad guys, hang them high. He said about lynching. So what should happen to the domestic terrorists that stormed the U.S. Capitol building January 6th, Representative Chip Roy? I'm just curious. They assaulted police officers. A handful of police officers ended up dying. There's 140 police officers that were injured by domestic terrorists. They were threatening, some of them threatening to hang Mike Pence. Somebody built a gallows outside, had a hangman's noose. So I'm just curious. I'm pro law enforcement. When? I'm pro taking out the bad guys, hang them high. He all but shrugged when asked about America's history of lynching Black people. Representative Chip Roy of Texas asked, yeah, so? He said it was a metaphor for justice. Now, clearly, Roy's views about lynchings, for which his state was responsible for hundreds of instances, has not evolved. Now, Democrats demand he resigns. He's not going to resign. He needs to be voted out of office. According to the Lynching in Texas website, there were more than 600 lynchings in the Lone Star State between 1882 and 1945. The NAACP put lynchings in their proper historical perspective. A typical lynching involved a criminal accusation, an arrest, and the assembly of a mob, followed by seizure, physical torment, and murder of the victim, followed by seizure, physical torment, and murder of the victim. Oftentimes mutilation, castration, things like this. Lynchings were often public spectacles attended by the white community in celebration of white supremacy. Photos of lynchings were often sold as souvenir cards. This is why a lot of these dumbasses have to be voted out of office. I'm telling you, you can't let people stay in office who keep voting against your own interests. Elections have consequences. Illinois Representative Bobby Rush, a Democrat and former member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, who introduced the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, took to Twitter to say that he was not surprised that Representative Chip Roy was among the 3 Republicans who voted against the bill. Representative Bobby Rush also called out the other 2 Republicans who voted against the bill, including Georgia Representative Andrew Clyde, who called the January 6th insurrection a normal tourist visit of domestic terrorists, and Kentucky Representative Thomas Massey, who wrote a bill to allow guns in school zones. That's Representative Thomas Massey out of Kentucky. Here's a tweet from Representative Bobby Rush. He said, "Who were the 3 votes against the Anti-Lynching Act tonight?" And he calls them out. He says, "All Republicans." Surprised? Now, the bill will ensure that the full force of the federal government is always brought to bear on individuals who commit the monstrous act of lynching, Representative Bobby Rush said in a separate tweet. Okay, the bill now advances to the Senate. Okay, read the rest of this article here from blackamericaweb.com. Hang 'em high Republican who voted against Emmett Till bill called lynching a metaphor for justice. Okay. Now, at NAACP.org, also their national website, they have information there on lynchings and the history of lynchings. So you can check that out. History of lynchings, NAACP.org. And if you just Google lynchings in NAACP, it'll come up. History of lynching in America. We know there were 4,743 lynchings from 1882 to about 1968. Mississippi had the most number of lynchings. Mississippi had 581 lynchings. Okay, Texas was 3rd. So the highest number of lynchings. So 1882 to 1968, there were 4,743 lynchings that were recorded in the U.S. 4,743 lynchings. All right. Now, other accounts, including the Equal Justice Initiative's extensive report on lynching, count slightly different numbers, but it's impossible to know for certain how many lynchings occurred because there was no formal tracking. Many historians believe the true number is underreported. The highest number of lynchings during that time period, 1882 to 1968, occurred in Mississippi, where Emmett Till was lynched. Okay, and then also was in Mississippi, where Medgar Evers was killed as well, 1963, by Byron Della Beckwith. Mississippi had 581 recorded lynchings. Georgia had the 2nd highest number of lynchings, where Ahmaud Arbery was lynched February 23rd, 2020. Okay, luckily those 3 white men that lynched him are in prison. Georgia had the 2nd number of lynchings, 531, and Texas had the 3rd highest number of lynchings, 493. Lynchings did not occur in every state. There are no recorded lynchings in Arizona, Idaho, Maine, Nevada, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wisconsin. African Americans were the primary victims of lynchings. There were 3,446, or about 72% of the people lynched during that period of time, 1882 to 1968, were African American. But they were not the only victims. Okay. There were 1,200. They don't have the number here, but I've seen it before. There were 1,297 white people who were lynched during that same period of time, also 1882 to 1968, because the Ku Klux Klan and other white domestic terrorist organizations were not just targeting African Americans. They were also targeting white Republicans. Okay. and they were targeting Jews. They were targeting Chinese and different ethnic groups. African Americans got the brunt of it, but they were not the only ones being lynched. Okay, so check this out here. Immigrants from Mexico, China, Australia, and other countries were also lynched. All right, so read the rest of this piece here. History of lynching in America. Okay, now I want to go to I want to give a quick update on Ukraine because we're way over time. I'm running out of time here. Okay. What has the NAACP done about lynching? Did you not? I guess you came in late. We dealt with some of the history of the NAACP 100 years ago fighting against lynchings. Read this, how the NAACP fought lynching with pictures of a man being lynched. This is one article. We talked about the silent march in 1917 organized by James Weldon Johnson of the NAACP. In the NAACP, 10,000 African Americans marching down Fifth Avenue in New York City, demanding federal anti-lynching laws. I guess this person came in late. All right, let's continue. For those that came in late, we talked about this in the beginning. This is just one example. Many learn of silent parade for first time after Google honors iconic civil rights march, which is organized by James Weldon Johnson and the NAACP. They've been fighting for federal anti-lynching laws for over 100 years. All right, and this is NAACP's official website. You can Google it also. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna say that, but anyway, NAACP.org. I'm gonna be nice. NAACP.org. Now, some of the horrific images I'm not gonna show. Okay, I'm not gonna show some of the horrific images. They have some here. This is NAACP's official website. What we witnessed with George Floyd was the same public spectacle, someone in broad daylight with onlookers being killed at the hands of a law enforcement officer who has just complete disregard for human life and felt he was above the law. Is Derek Johnson, president and CEO of the NAACP. So they have a history of the NAACP's involvement fighting against lynchings. All this here is at their website. Okay. All right. Let me post this link here. Share this with your friends that ask these questions. I just really find it interesting when people ask questions like that, but okay. All right. So I mean, I just find it interesting. I guess Google don't work on their phone. So okay. But anyway, I'm gonna be nice. I'm just asking. I just find it interesting. But this is information on lynchings and the history of lynchings and the NAACP fighting against lynchings at their website, NAACP.org. So I just, I just find it interesting. People ask questions like that. I know, I understand people don't know, but it's like, okay, there's something called Google. Right, Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells, 1892, Memphis, Tennessee. Ida B. Wells helps found the NAACP. The reason why the NAACP was founded was one of the main reasons, the fight against the lynchings that were taking place, 1909. All right, but anyway, I don't want to be here all night, all day. Okay, let's go to Ukraine. Okay, so if we look here at let me see, we've got the update from Ukraine. So this is day 6 of the attack. And if we look at these updates here from the Washington Post, and we're going to go to this clip here from NBC News. Rest of the stuff we'll have to get to tomorrow. Biden's State of the Union address. He had a really good speech. He hit on a number of different topics. He talked about many of the accomplishments and talked about the American Rescue Plan, $1.1 trillion infrastructure bill, a lot of things. You had these two idiots up here. A handful of GOP lawmakers kept up something of a running commentary through the speech at times were audible. Representatives Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene were the loudest. Boebert shouted, "That's right," when Biden spoke of funding the police. Greene, who has racked up more than $88,000 in mask-related fines in the House, grumbled through the entire section on COVID-19 and yelled something about women's sports during the mention of transgender youth. When Biden mentioned immigration, both congresswomen tried to start a "build the wall" chant. Yeah, but I find it interesting when people are anti-immigrant, and it's like your ancestors were immigrants. Don't get it twisted now. Some of these people's ancestors came here illegally. Don't get it twisted. Some of these people's ancestors were criminals when they came here. So I'm on NBC News. I'm on their Instagram page, and they show these two idiots. Lauren Boebert, the brunette, and then Marjorie Taylor Greene, the blonde. She gives dumb blondes a bad name. Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at a white supremacist. Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at a white supremacist rally just a couple of days ago, and then she had to backtrack from it and say she really didn't know the views of the people there, things like this. You really sounded like you were really at home. I saw some of she looked like she was at home. She looked like those are her type of people. Marjorie Taylor Greene of the good old state of Georgia that has the largest Confederate monument of anywhere in the country. It's called Stone Mountain. Let me see something here. Oh, this is a good one right here. So the Independent has this story picked up by Yahoo News. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon crazy QAnon conspiracy theorist lady, she defends speaking at white supremacist events, saying she didn't know what it was. She didn't know. So you just go speak at events and you don't know what it was. You don't do any research, anything like this. Okay, this is from February 26, 2022. Here she is, good, upstanding citizen, lover of guns, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, make America great again. Yeah. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene waded into newfound controversy on Friday when she attended a white nationalist convention in Florida and tried to claim afterwards that she didn't know what she was doing. Now, okay, let's just stop for a minute, right? When a organization asks you to speak for them, usually it's because they like what you have to say and they think that your ideology, what you advocate for, your policies fall in line with their ideology and what they advocate for. Okay. So say hypothetically she didn't know what the group was about, things like this. Well, they knew what you were about. That's why they asked you to speak. Okay, I've spoken all across the country for different groups all across the country. When a group asks you to speak, is because they like what you have to say, and they think that your ideology, what you advocate for, what you say, your policies that you support, fall in line with their agenda and their ideology and the policies they support, what they advocate for. So she said when she attended a white nationalist convention in Florida, and she tried to claim afterwards that she didn't know what she was doing. Okay. Now, the Georgia Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, attended an event hosted by Nick Fuentes, one of the United States most, let me scroll over here. Let's skip this here. Nick Fuentes, one of the United States most well-known white nationalists and far-right figures. He knows who you are, but you're clueless. You make dumb blondes look bad, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Nick Fuentes is one of the United States most well-known white nationalists and far-right figures. Okay. He also cheered Russia and Putin at the little white nationalist convention also. Mr. Fuentes attended the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, during which neo-Nazis and far-right activists clashed with counter-protesters. Now, if you Google this, and they may have the video in here, you watch Marjorie Taylor Greene, she just acts like she's at home, just home with good old down home folk, just good old, like she was with, not saying Bowen Luke Duke or white supremacists, but if you like just like with the Waltons, or you like with, if you like with Bowen Luke Duke and Uncle Jesse and Daisy, just good down home folk, she felt right at home with these people. On Saturday, Marjorie Taylor Greene initially attempted to dodge questions about the event. Well, wait a second. If you ain't know what it was, why don't you just say, okay, I didn't know what it was, what have you. But she attempted to dodge questions about the event. Okay, but addressed reporters after it became clear that her attendance at the event was not a guarded secret. During her brief remarks, she claimed to have never heard of Nick Fuentes or his beliefs, even though he's one of the most well-known white supremacists in the let's back up. He's one of the U.S. most well-known white nationalists and far-right figures. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene, let me ask you a question. You don't have a staff? All Congress people have a congressional staff. They have your schedule. They know ahead of time where you're going to speak at. Nobody on your staff said, look here, this is one of like the most well-known white nationalists and far-right figures. I don't think you want to go to this. Nobody, looked out for a sister. I mean, nobody said, wait a second, I don't think you want to go here because your views don't line up with these people's views. You don't want to go to that. But maybe if your views do line up with those people's views, then it's okay. On Saturday, she initially attempted to dodge questions about the event, but addressed reporters after it became clear that her attendance at the event was not a guarded secret. During her brief remarks, she claimed to have never heard of Nick Fuentes or his beliefs. Her remarks came hours after she shared a stage with him and even went on Twitter. She even went on Twitter to defend her efforts as aimed at reaching young conservatives. Okay, so you go to a white nationalist organization, you go to a white nationalist event to reach young conservatives. Oh, wow. Okay, that says a whole lot about young conservatives. We're going to go to a white nationalist convention. Next week, we're going to go to a KKK rally. Okay. Then the week after that, we're going to go to a neo-Nazi rally. Okay. So sometimes, see, now you expect me to believe nobody on your staff knew any better. Her remarks came hours after she shared the stage with Nick Fuentes, and then she went on Twitter to defend her efforts as aimed at reaching young conservatives. We have a young conservative outreach group where we go to white nationalist organizations and their events to reach young conservatives, because that's where young conservatives are. She should have said young white conservatives, because that's who she's talking about. She said, I don't know Nick Fuentes. I never heard him speak. I've never seen a video. I don't know what his views are, so I'm not aligned with anything that may be controversial, she said. She said, so I'm not aligned with anything. Okay, who asked you to speak at that conference? You don't have a staff that like researches the organizations that ask you to speak? That's what most people do. Most congressional staffers, they want to know who they're speaking for. Robert Costa posted this from CBS News. Robert Costa for NBC posted this. He said, at CBS News Press, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene on her appearance last night at a white nationalist conference. Here's a full video. Let's watch this. Let's watch this.
Stuff I have got to get to the airport.
Let's see what MGT had to say. MTG. Let's see what she had to say. Hold on. Let's see. This would be good.
Stuff I have got to get to the airport. I'm glad to talk to you about this. I do not know Nick Fuentes. I've never heard him speak. I've never seen a video. I don't know what his views are, so I'm not aligned with anything that may be controversial. What I can tell you is I went to his event last night to address his very large following, because that is it's a very young following, and it's a generation I'm extremely concerned about.
It's a white nationalist group.
Excuse me a minute. I'll tell you exactly why I went. I went to talk to them about America First policies, and I talked to them about what's important for our country going forward. Now, in regards to Russia, Putin is a murderer, and he should have never invaded Ukraine. What he is doing is completely wrong. I stand with our NATO member allies, and I'm completely against this war.
It's a white nationalist
Excuse me, I'm going to finish. Everything that he's doing is wrong. He's killing people over and over. So I'm staunchly against it, and I'm staunchly against Vladimir Putin and his invasion of Ukraine. Another thing that's extremely important for me to say is the whole reason this is happening is because Joe Biden is a weak president. Now America is a weak country, and our entire world is falling apart, and we're seeing war erupt, which did not happen under President Trump, because we had peace through strength. So this is something that we've got to really focus on, and I'm appalled at our country for putting America last this way, making us depend on China, Russia, and foreign countries for our critical supplies and our energy.
Do you endorse Nick Fuentes' views?
Excuse me, I don't know what his views are. I've never.
He's a white nationalist.
I do not endorse those views. The reason why I went was to talk to the audience, just like I've talked to many different audiences. I've talked to Democrat union workers earlier this week. I've talked here at CPAC. I talked to his people who were there. It wasn't an alignment. It was to talk about getting everyone together to save our country. And I think
Can I ask, why did you take the stage, though?
An appearance is an endorsement.
Young white men with the secret sauce.
Okay, so let me go back to my original question. Who invited you to speak? Who invited? Because if your views didn't line up with this white nationalist organization, they wouldn't ask you to speak. They wouldn't ask me to speak. So who asked you to speak? See, notice she didn't talk about that at all. All right. Let's see here. So watch this. So you can watch the rest of that. Watch that again. Okay, so she spoke to reporters, and he has made numerous. Okay, but Miss Cheney wasn't buying it, as reporters who questioned Marjorie Taylor Greene also refused to do. Mr. Fuentes is one of the most prominent white nationalists in America and has a well-documented history of making deeply offensive remarks. He has made numerous anti-Semitic comments over the years and is a prominent pusher of the white genocide conspiracy theories, which posit that liberals are trying to forcibly destroy white people as a race. Now, this is Representative Liz Cheney blasting her, Representative Liz Cheney, Republican of Oklahoma, who is ostracized by a lot of these Trump-loving Republicans. As Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Representative Paul Gosar was there also, another white supremacist. Representative Paul Gosar, he attended that conference as well. As Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Representative Paul Gosar speak at this white supremacist, anti-Semitic, pro-Putin event, silence by Republican Party leaders is deafening and enabling. All Americans should renounce this garbage and reject the Putin wing of the GOP now. That's little Nikki right there. Little Nikki, little darling Nikki. That's him right there. Okay, I'm not even gonna play what he said. You can watch it. You can watch it. Okay, so go watch the rest of this. So now she's trying to backtrack and say, I don't know who he is, all this stuff. You know, I never heard of him before. I don't know what he stands for. Who invited you to speak? Why they invite you to speak? That's what I want to know, because your views line up with what they say. But when she said she went to go speak to young conservatives because that group attracts a lot of young conservatives. Okay, yeah. That's the white nationalist party, the GOP. They're the white nationalist party. She knew why she was there. All right. Let's see. Okay, I posted the link there. That's from Yahoo News, picked up by that's from the Independent, picked up by Yahoo News. And Representative Kevin McCarthy, little spineless Kevin McCarthy, he came out and he had to finally condemn Marjorie Taylor Greene as well. Kevin McCarthy of California, who needs to be voted out of office as well. Kevin McCarthy condemns Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar for attending appalling and wrong white nationalist event. This is unacceptable. But you support a white nationalist named Donald Trump, Kevin McCarthy. He said, come on. All right. Now, let's go to this quickly here. Update on, it was Bobby Rush. Somebody asked who sponsored the bill, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. It's Bobby Rush of Illinois. Read this article here from New York Times. House passes bill to make lynching a hate crime. He vowed to see the legislation become law before retiring at the end of his term. All right, now, quick update here on what's going on in Ukraine. This is day 6 of the invasion. Biden says Putin is isolated, issues plea for his domestic agenda in his first State of the Union address. Biden says we will save democracy. He says as he concludes his remarks, Biden vows to fund the police, receives bipartisan applause. Biden urges Americans to stop looking at COVID as a partisan dividing line. Okay, these are not the updates I want from, here's the updates I want dealing with Russia. He talked about Ukraine in his State of the Union address. We'll talk about that more on tomorrow's show. Moscow steps up assault on residential areas. Biden closes U.S. airspace to Russian planes. Footage shows aftermath of missile strike targeting Kyiv's TV tower and Holocaust memorial, killing 5. Biden says Putin was wrong. We were ready. at his State of the Union address. Nearly 680,000 Ukrainians have fled in what might be Europe's largest refugee crisis this century. The United Nations says nearly 680,000 Ukrainians have fled. Okay, so these are updates from Tuesday, March 1st. With a massive convoy of Russian troops idling just 20 miles north of central Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and shelling intensifying from the capital to cities across Ukraine, Moscow appeared to escalate its attacks on residential areas Tuesday with videos and social media posts documenting the devastation and fierce fighting, Now, the most visible assault came when a missile strike hit Kiev's main tower, TV tower, in a nearby Holocaust memorial, killing at least 5 people, officials said. Footage of the aftermath obtained by the Washington Post showed a gruesome scene of blown out cars and buildings and several bodies on fire. Kiev was bracing for an all-out assault amid fears that Russian troops would encircle the capital, as they've apparently done in the country's second largest city, Kharkiv, its mayor told the Washington Post. In his State of the Union address, President Joe Biden applauded the bravery of Ukrainians fighting the invasion and called for the United States and its allies to continue to support the resistance to Russian forces. Now, the U.S. is not. Some people say the U.S. is not going to actively get involved and actually start shooting at Russians and things like this, because that can trigger World War III. They're there to support Ukraine, which is a sovereign country and has its own army. And they're there to support other NATO nations. Okay, but if like some people said, oh, they should the U.S. should cut off the airspace or something like that, right? If the U.S. shoots down a Russian plane, that could drastically escalate things, and that could you could launch World War III. Because when you go study World War I, the U.S. wasn't involved in World War I in the beginning. World War I started in 1914. U.S. didn't get involved in 1917. World War II starts about 1939. U.S. doesn't get involved until 1941 with Pearl Harbor's bomb. So the U.S., they have troops there to assist the Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians have an army. But Biden acknowledged the next few days, weeks, and months will be hard for Ukraine, with Russian President Vladimir Putin expected to continue escalating his offensive. Biden also announced that the United States would close its airspace to Russian airlines, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. So their economy is in shambles now. Now you have nearly 680,000 Ukrainians have left the country since the start of the invasion in the United Nations, since the start of the invasion, which started on the 24th, Thursday, February 24th. Okay. And let me increase the size of this here. Nearly 680,000 Ukrainians have left the country since the start of the invasion, the United Nations reported, marking the largest exodus in Europe since the Balkan Wars of 1900s. Congressional Democrats and Republicans are rallying around a new push to provide billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine. The U.S. is also, so you have different European nations like Germany providing military weapons for Ukraine, to the Ukrainian army. The U.S. is going to do the same thing as well. European Union nations are probably not going to send fighter jets to Ukraine, despite a senior European Union official's vow that aircraft would be among the military aid the bloc promised, officials said. President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine repeated his plea with the European Union to admit his country on an emergency basis, admit Ukraine to the European Union. The United States and other world powers decided to release 60 million barrels of oil from their reserves, a move intended to reduce gasoline prices that have climbed rapidly in recent weeks, according to the International Energy Agency, which will help bring down the price per barrel, because the price per barrel of gasoline increased 11% basically overnight from Monday to Tuesday. Apple computers and iPhones. Apple said it is pausing product sales in Russia and has limited other services within the country. Okay, so read the rest of these updates here. We'll talk about this some more on tomorrow's show. This is live updates from the Washington Post. Moscow steps up assault on residential areas. Biden closes U.S. airspace to Russian planes. All right. And then we'll go to I'm going to go to this article here from Axios. So this deals with leaders decry reported mistreatment of Africans fleeing Ukraine. We've been talking about this the past couple of days also. And for those that let me put this up here just so I can hear. Okay, we got this. Leaders decry reported mistreatment of Africans fleeing Ukraine. CNN had a good article on this also. So Don Lemon talked about this on CNN on Monday, on the show Monday night. For those that came in late and missed us talking about the NAACP's history in fighting against lynchings, read this at NAACP.org, History of Lynching in America. White Americans used lynching to terrorize and control Black people in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Learn more about the history of this barbaric practice and how the NAACP worked to end lynching and fought against it, like the 1917 Silent March and all this. This gives background information. NAACP was involved in gathering witnesses in the trial of when Emmett Till was killed. So it's a deep history behind that. Okay, now this one right here. Which one is that I want? This one from Axios.com. Leaders decry reported mistreatment of Africans fleeing Ukraine. This is from Tuesday. This is from Tuesday, March 1st. Tuesday, March 1st from Axios.com. It's President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria. We talked about him yesterday. African nations and U.S. civil rights leaders are condemning the reported mistreatment of Africans by Ukrainian authorities as they try to flee the nation amid Russia's invasion. Nigeria's government strongly criticized reports and video images from its citizens and those from other African nations that they were being prevented from leaving and facing harsh treatment in neighboring Poland. So we've been talking about this, on past 2 days. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari said in a tweet on Sunday, February 27th, he said his government had received unfortunate reports of Ukrainian police and security personnel refusing to allow Nigerians to board buses and trains to Poland. He said there are also separate reports of Polish officials simply refusing Nigerian citizens entry into Poland from Ukraine. He said roughly 4,000 citizens from Nigeria, Nigerian and other African nations are stranded in Ukraine because you have African students who are there studying medicine, engineering, different things like this. Okay, they're college students. The NAACP, one of the oldest civil rights groups in the U.S., said Monday the reported mistreatment of Black people in Ukraine was atrocious and reprehensible. Right now in Ukraine, Black families, immigrants from the African diaspora, and other people of color, mothers, children, and students are not only facing challenges to evacuate a deadly war zone, but are being pushed from trains and beaten by police officers, end quote. Africans are being denied. So Jeffrey Onayama has taken this up with the Ukrainian ambassador. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Nigeria. He said Africans are being denied entry through the Ukrainian borders. Okay. The Polish border force told the BBC everyone fleeing conflict in Ukraine was being welcomed into Poland regardless of nationality. We talked about this on yesterday's show. So President Muhammadu Buhari instructed Nigerians trying to get out to he instructed them to go to Hungary or Romania. He instructed them to go to Hungary or Romania, which border Ukraine, because over 50% of the people fleeing Ukraine are going into Poland. All right, so it's over 680,000 have fled Ukraine now. Over 50% are going into Poland. The number I heard early this morning on MSNBC was at least 360,000. At least 360,000 have gone into Poland. Okay, that's basically as of March 1st, Monday morning, March 1st. Okay, televised reports have shown authorities prioritizing women and children on the limited trains crossing the border. A few thousand Black Ukrainians are believed to live in the country's major cities, though precise population numbers aren't available. Kimberly St. Julian Varnon, a history and University of Pennsylvania doctoral candidate who studies Black Ukrainians, told Axios. Some are biracial, second or third generation Ukrainians with African fathers and white Slavic mothers. Others are first-generation arrivals from African nations drawn by easy access to education. President Muhammadu Buhari said Nigerians and other Africans have a long history of studying in Ukraine, particularly medicine. Zahan Belaniuk, an Olympic gold medalist serving as Ukraine's first Black member of parliament, urged fellow countrymen last week to resist the Russian invasion. Belaniuk has spoken openly about the racism he's faced in Ukraine after bringing home the Greco-Roman middleweight gold medal last year in the Tokyo Games. But experts say he and other Black Ukrainians are expressing their loyalty to the country amid fears they could become special targets for Russian occupiers. But experts say he and other Black Ukrainians are expressing their loyalty to the country amid fears they could become special targets for Russian occupiers. Okay, so check out the rest of this article here from Axios.com. Leaders decry reported mistreatment of Africans fleeing Ukraine. Okay, and then there was a CNN had an article also that I read earlier today, because and Don Lemon talked about this on CNN, the discrimination that different Africans in Ukraine were experiencing. So check this out also from CNN.com. Foreign students fleeing Ukraine say they face segregation, racism at border. Foreign students fleeing Ukraine say they face segregation, racism at border. This is from March 1st, 2022. Okay, so they interview African medical students. Okay, this Rachel, Nigerian first-year medical student in Lviv, was left stranded at the border town of Shanai, some 400 miles from Ukraine's capital. One African medical student told CNN that she and other foreigners were ordered off the public transit. At a checkpoint between Ukraine and the Poland border. She told CNN more than 10 buses came and we were watching everyone leave. We thought after they took all the Ukrainians, they would take us, but they told us we had to walk, that there were no more buses, and told us to walk. She said, my body was numb from the cold, and we haven't slept in about 4 days now. Ukrainians have been prioritized over Africans. This is something, the piece from People magazine that we talked about yesterday. They talked about Corinne Sky, 26 years old, who was interviewed by BusinessInsider.com. Corinne Sky is from, I think she's from Somalia, 26-year-old medical student. She said the same thing. She said that they were prioritizing Ukrainians. But here, this sister also, Rachel, she says that they were prioritizing Ukrainians. Ukrainians have been prioritized over Africans, men and women at every point. There's no need for us to ask why. We know why. I just want to get home. She told CNN in a telephone call Sunday as she waited in line at the border to cross into Poland. Okay, here's some Africans here trying to get onto a bus. University students, including many from Nigeria, fleeing from the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. stole their, okay, so they're putting their luggage on, get on transportation bus near the Hungarian-Ukrainian border in the village of Tarpa in Hungary. Okay, this is from February 28th, 2022. Okay, so the allegations of violence as well that we've been talking about. Some of the Africans have made it to their final destination, whether in Romania or in Poland or what have you, but it took days to do it oftentimes. All right, read the rest of this article here. We'll talk about this some more on tomorrow's show. Foreign students fleeing Ukraine say they face segregation, racism at border. All right, if you like this type of information, be sure to support the African History Network, $TheAHNShow through Cash App, $TheAHNShow through Cash App, or through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. And we'll post the information here. It's at our website also, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We're 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Sure to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You can next class is Saturday, March 5th. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can use this information with your children also. I would say the content is PG-13. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, all that. And then we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. So if you want to go back and watch the entire course a year from now, you can do that. We also have a bundle pack where you can register for both classes for $120. That's a $260 value. If you've taken any of my online classes before with me, I've been teaching them since 2017. Email me at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com and you'll get a 50% discount. Okay. Email me at AHNShow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You get a 50% discount. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.